David Muir, ABC's World News Tonight, America's most watched newscast. Now streaming same day with all the breaking news of the day on Disney+. Most watched, most trusted. Now on Disney+ every night.
Tonight, breaking news, the sudden death of longtime Republican Senator Lindsey Graham. The 71-year-old, a stalwart of the Senate, is being remembered as a devoted public servant and fierce advocate for democracy overseas. President Trump calling him a true American patriot. The senior senator from South Carolina represented the state in the House and Senate for more than 3 decades. And what we just learned tonight about the cause of death. Republicans are now scrambling to find a replacement ahead of the critical midterm elections as Graham was seeking a 5th term. And it comes as fellow Republican and former Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has been hospitalized for weeks with an undisclosed illness. The scorching heat in the West is fueling wildfires in California, and the dangerous flash flooding and the severe storms targeting parts of the Southeast. Our weather team is tracking it all. Also tonight, a new escalation of strikes between the U.S. and Iran as both sides try to control the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. launches yet another round of strikes. A terrifying scene at Yellowstone National Park. The dramatic images. A man was thrown several feet into the air by an agitated bison. What we're learning tonight. A second American tests positive for Ebola while working for a humanitarian group in the Congo. Why Meta pulled the plug on a new AI tool that sparked privacy concerns for some critics. Drama and controversy at the World Cup as the semifinals matchups are now set. The growing debate over the use of video replay. And America Strong tonight, the soccer dad who built a field of dreams, fulfilling a decades-long goal.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on this Sunday. I'm Lindsey Davis. We begin with the sudden death of a longtime Republican senator from South Carolina, Lindsey Graham. He was one of the most powerful lawmakers in Washington. Preliminary findings indicate he died from cardiovascular disease. Tributes are pouring in tonight for a man being remembered as a devoted public servant and a lawmaker who left an indelible mark on the Senate. President Trump calling him, quote, one of the greatest people and senators I have known. Graham was also one of Ukraine's most vocal supporters in Congress. Just days ago, he returned from a visit to Kyiv where he met with President Zelensky, a final public mission that underscored a cause he championed until the end. Flags at the White House are being flown at half-staff to honor the late senator. His death is echoing far beyond Capitol Hill, sending shockwaves through Washington and upending an already turbulent political season. We have team coverage tonight. ABC's Jay O'Brien leads us off.
Tonight, the sudden death of Republican Senator Lindsey Graham shaking Washington and reverberating around the world. Flags lowered to half-staff at the White House and the Capitol. Washington, D.C. EMS dispatched to Graham's home on Saturday night for a man in apparent cardiac arrest.
Cardiac arrest.
Tonight, Graham's office sharing the preliminary findings from the medical examiner, showing the senator died from a ruptured aorta stemming from heart disease. It came just hours after Graham returned from this trip to Ukraine. He had just turned 71 years old on Thursday. There was perhaps no Republican senator closer to President Trump. Today, Trump calling Graham a true American patriot, saying he spoke to the senator on the phone the night he died.
And he said, you know, I feel good, but I'm tired. He was like a member of the family to me. It's very tough, actually.
Graham arrived in Congress in the 1994 Republican wave, making a name for himself in the impeachment of President Bill Clinton. The South Carolina man who grew up in a single room behind his parents' liquor store, bar, and pool hall, the first in his family to graduate college, would go on to serve more than 2 decades in the Senate and become one of the nation's most recognizable politicians. On Capitol Hill, Graham was known for his hawkish foreign policy, supporting wars in Afghanistan, Iraq, and later Iran.
All hell's about to break loose on this regime.
In 2016, Graham mounted a presidential campaign and sparred with then-candidate Donald Trump in defense of his mentor, the late Senator John McCain.
I think he's crazy. I think he's unfit for office.
But Graham and Trump later went from political foes to fast friends, the senator spending more time with Trump than seemingly any other lawmaker, especially on the golf course. Graham was instrumental in confirming Trump's Supreme Court nominees, mounting this fiery defense of Justice Brett Kavanaugh in 2018.
This is the most unethical sham since I've been in politics.
But the senator notably split with Trump after January 6th.
All I can say is count me out.
The two would later reconcile. And tonight, Graham's impact being felt the world over. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying Israel has lost one of its greatest friends. Graham, who never married, is survived by his sister, who he helped raise after their parents' deaths, and his nieces. Tonight, Graham's Capitol Hill colleagues stunned, saying the Senate will never be the same.
I don't know another person who spent his entire adult life for one purpose: to make sure America remained the safest country on the planet to live.
And many Democrats, like New Jersey Senator Cory Booker, calling Graham an unlikely friend.
When he would be in the right place at the right time, man, he could get things done.
And Lindsey, remembrances continue to pour in tonight, including from former President Biden, who praised Graham's commitment to public service. Graham was part of this trio of senators up here on Capitol Hill. They were best friends, including John McCain and Connecticut's Joe Lieberman. They called themselves the Three Amigos. And when those two passed, Graham took to calling himself the last amigo. Tonight, John McCain's widow, Cindy, posting a photo of the three of them, saying that she's comforted that they are together again. Lindsey.
Jay O'Brien on the Capitol for us. Thank you. Senator Graham's passing comes just months before the high-stakes midterm elections. Both parties have faced significant setbacks in the fight for control of Congress. Here's ABC's Olivia Rubin.
Tonight, as Republicans remember their one-of-a-kind colleague,
I think the Senate lost a giant today.
South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster now facing that difficult task of filling the Senate seat Graham commanded for more than 2 decades. President Trump saying he has someone in mind.
I have somebody that I think would be great, but I don't want to say it now because it just, it's too soon with Lindsey.
The governor's pick will only finish out Graham's current term, state law mandating a special election to replace him on the ballot in November when he was up for re-election. Graham's sudden death bringing Republicans narrow control of both chambers into focus. One congressman taking himself out of the running for that exact reason, writing his, quote, goal is to remain in the House to maintain the 2-vote majority. And in the Senate, Republicans' 4-seat majority was already strained by the prolonged absence of Kentucky Senator Mitch McConnell. The 84-year-old Republican was hospitalized a month ago. Tonight, McConnell revealing he fell and was briefly unconscious and also had a mild case of pneumonia. McConnell saying he did not have a heart attack or stroke and is now working to get back to the Senate. And in Maine, it's Democrats who are scrambling after Senate candidate Graham Plattner ended his campaign following a sexual assault allegation, which he denies.
We believe that for the movement to continue, it can't be made.
Lindsey, in Maine, Democrats are set to hold a convention later this month to pick a new challenger to Republican Susan Collins. And in South Carolina, officials there telling us tonight that special election is set for August 11th. Lindsey.
2 high-stakes contests there, Olivia. Thank you. Firefighters are battling a fast-moving wildfire in northern Los Angeles County. The so-called Summit Fire has burned more than 2,600 acres and triggered evacuations over the weekend. It's just one of several fires fueled by scorching heat in the west. Here's ABC's meteorologist Leslie Lopez.
Tonight, the all-out effort to contain California's Summit Fire burning near Los Angeles, scorching over 2,600 acres. The fast-spreading blaze fueled by hot and dry conditions and forcing evacuations over the weekend. The region struggling with the heat and dry weather. To the east, too much rain. The cleanup underway after deadly flash flooding in Missouri.
Tell them we're on the roof.
4 children clinging to a roof awaiting rescue. A woman died when her home southwest of St. Louis was swept off its foundation. The threat now moving south and east. Parts of Tennessee getting up to 6 inches of rain. Floodwaters inundating Del Rio near Greenville. Along with more scorching heat just weeks after 26 people died in New Jersey alone when temperatures reached the triple digits. Across Atlantic, major landmarks like the Eiffel Tower and the Louvre closing early because of scorching temperatures, the mercury reaching 95 degrees. And the Tour de France shortening today's stage 9. The heat hampering efforts to fight wildfires. At least 12 people died this weekend in southern Spain as they tried to flee one of the several raging fires.
Look at those images. Leslie joins us now. So Leslie, tell us about this new round of dangerous weather you're tracking.
Now, it's still flash flooding that we're talking about anywhere from the Virginia coast all the way out towards Tennessee. So I want to take you to the maps. We're seeing this extended into these areas, and then also severe thunderstorm watches from South Carolina down through Georgia. That continues. We can see damaging wind. We can see hail. We could also see some lightning. We move you through the dangerous heat. This is anywhere from California all the way up into the northern plains, even into the Midwest, now expanding into Michigan and also areas of Wisconsin. That extreme heat will bring up temperatures into 100 degrees for International Falls. I do want to point that out. They haven't seen 100 degrees in over 100 years. That's right along the Canadian border. So impressive to see this heat moving way north and breaking some records, all-time records in Salt Lake City, along with areas of Billings, Montana. Pretty incredible heat for now.
Look at all those triple digits. All right, Leslie.
Thanks, Lindsey.
Thank you. Now to the escalation of strikes between the U.S. and Iran as both sides trying to control the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. launched yet another round of strikes. Here's ABC senior White House correspondent Selena Wang.
Tonight, the U.S.-Iran ceasefire breaking down as both sides unleash attacks in a fight to control the Strait of Hormuz. Those fresh attacks amid mixed messaging over the world's most important waterway. Hours after the U.S. launched a large-scale attack, striking 140 military targets in Iran, Iran retaliating, targeting several Gulf nations. Jordan, Kuwait, Oman, and Qatar all intercepting incoming fire. Qatar says 3 people, including a child, were injured by shrapnel. And tonight, the U.S. launching yet another round of strikes on Iran, a U.S. official saying they're meant to degrade Iran's ability to hit commercial shipping. The U.S. blaming Iran for those continued attacks on ships in the strait. U.S. officials had expected Iran to publicly commit to stop attacking ships in the strait after weekend negotiations in Oman. But instead, Iran says it opened fire after several ships used unapproved routes and ignored warnings from its navy. And now declaring it's closing the strait until the end of American interventions in this region. But tonight, President Trump insisting the critical waterway remains open.
It's open. We bombed the hell out of them last night.
And Lindsey, President Trump is also claiming that Iran agreed to a deal during those talks in Oman yesterday, but Iran hasn't said anything about that. Instead, Iran continues to use the Strait of Hormuz as leverage in these talks. Lindsey?
Selena Wang from the White House for us. Thank you. Now to the tragic death of 18-year-old Nolan Wells. His parents are searching for answers and justice. Let's get right to ABC's Ike Ajachi. Ike, what are you learning tonight?
Lindsey, the pressure is growing on investigators in Mississippi as hundreds march through Ocean Springs demanding transparency and justice in the death of 18-year-old Nolan Wells. The crowd gathering just miles from Horn Island, where Wells went with friends on the 4th of July and never made it back. 2 days later, his body was found in the water off the island. His family is demanding answers, saying the story they've been given, that Nolan chose to stay behind and didn't have his phone, doesn't add up, pointing to what they say are deleted texts and empty Snapchat accounts. They've ordered a private autopsy in Washington, D.C. Investigators in Jackson County have no new update, saying they're working toward the same goal as a family, which is a transparent investigation. Lindsey.
Ike, thanks for that update. Now to the frightening scene at Yellowstone National Park. A grandfather out on a walk with his grandson was attacked by a charging bison and thrown at least 8 feet into the air. He was injured but is expected to be okay. ABC's Melissa Dunn has the latest.
Tonight, these are the heart-stopping moments a grandfather was attacked by a bison at Yellowstone National Park. The dramatic video posted online by a professional photographer shows a bison, which can weigh more than 1,500 pounds, charging after the 65-year-old, flipping him into the air. You see the man and his grandchild stop to take photos of the bison. Seconds later, the massive mammal then charges, chasing the family around trees before the man is thrown multiple feet into the air, seriously injuring him.
Bison! Look out, bison!
Another video shows the bison running past tents at a campsite before the incident. The grandfather is lucky to be alive. Millions of people visit Yellowstone every year to see the park's famous wildlife. Unfortunately, this is not the first time we've seen bison charging tourists.
As for that 65-year-old, he was hospitalized and is recovering from his injuries. Yellowstone National Park warns people to keep at least 25 yards away from bison at all times, and if too close, you are warned to retreat immediately. Lindsey.
So glad to hear he'll be okay, Melissa. Thank you. Now to the drama and controversy at the World Cup. The teams are now set for the semifinals, but as fans celebrate, the debate over the use of video replay is growing. Here's ABC's Tom Sophie Burridge.
Tonight, high drama and controversy as the top 4 seeds in the World Cup all secure spots in the semi-finals. England's Jude Bellingham putting on another standout performance in a tense and sometimes shaky 2-1 victory over Norway. The victory sending England fans into a frenzy.
England fans talk about that being 60 years of hurt. That's how long we haven't won a trophy. And there is celebration and belief in the air.
But it's this moment in the run-up to England's first goal that angered Norway. The ball appearing to alter course after hitting a camera wire high up in the stadium. Soccer's governing body, FIFA, saying it didn't because its sensors weren't triggered. From that red card for the star US striker to Egypt's stunning goal ruled out. Video replay systems in the spotlight in a host of matches at this World Cup. Some coaches, players and fans arguing it makes the game better. Others say it slows the sport down and doesn't always produce the right decision. Video technology also playing a key role in Argentina's tight quarter-final with Switzerland. Switzerland playing more than 50 minutes with only 10 men. Swiss striker Breel Embolo sent off after he appeared to be fouled. The video replay showed he dived, earning him a second yellow card and an early tearful exit. The Swiss defence holding out until this extra time stunner from Julian Alvarez. Argentina booking their spot in the semi-finals.
And Lindsey, more controversy tonight. The president of FIFA in an interview is not ruling out further expanding the World Cup from a record 48 teams this time to 64 nations at future tournaments. Lindsey?
All right, Tom, lots of excitement as well. Thank you. Still to come on World News tonight, following days of intense backlash from creators, Meta says it's taking down Muse, its new AI image tool. What one of the nation's busiest airports is doing to curb congestion and delays, and who came out on top at the Wimbledon's men's final in London today. Tonight, the Centers for Disease Control says an American working for a humanitarian group in the Democratic Republic of Congo has tested positive for Ebola. The CDC says it's working with the patient's employer and federal agencies to prevent further transmission. According to officials, the number of Ebola cases there has jumped to more than 1,800. After days of intense backlash over its opt-out policy, Meta is hitting pause on its new AI image tool. Meta says it's suspending a feature of Muse, which allowed users to generate images using content from public Instagram accounts. Meta admits it missed the mark. It's not known if the company will re-implement the feature in different ways. When we come back, what one of the nation's largest airports is doing to cut delays and curb congestion, and who came out on top of the Wimbledon's men's final in London today. To the index, if you're flying through Chicago's O'Hare, expect fewer flights for at least another year. That's because the FAA says it's extending its 10% flight cuts to the Windy City. It's part of an effort to prevent delays and address congestion concerns at the nation's third busiest airport. Tonight, Yannick Sinner of Italy stays on top at Wimbledon, winning back-to-back men's singles titles. It took the world's #1 ranked player more than 3 hours, 45 minutes to defeat Germany's Alex Zverev in 4 sets. Zverev appeared bothered by a knee issue after slipping in the third set. This is Sinner's 5th Grand Slam title. When we come back, proof that one person's passion can build something an entire community can enjoy. Finally, one Texas man is turning his passion for soccer into a field of dreams for his entire community. Every Monday and Wednesday, rain or shine, heat or cold, these young players gather to chase a ball. And something even bigger, on a patch of grass in the backyard of an Arlington, Texas father who simply believed every child deserves a place to dream.
I've been involved in soccer for 35 years. To build a soccer field, that was one of my dreams, and it came true.
It was a dream 3 years in the making. Sergio Vivanco went door to door, looking for children who simply needed a place to play.
At first, to my wife, it was like a crazy idea.
Crazy enough to change lives. He built the field not just for his own 12 and 13-year-old sons, but for any child eager to lace up their cleats and belong. Now he volunteers as their coach in the Atletico Dallas Youth League. For players like Brayvon Jones, this field is about much more than soccer.
I feel like alive, and it's just nice to be around people that I can do the same thing that I like to do.
And when Bravon was asked what it would mean to one day wear a Team USA jersey,
it would feel amazing. I would love to represent my country.
Sergio's dream may have started with a backyard, but its reach extends far beyond the fence line. Scoring big there. Thanks for watching. I'm Lindsey Davis in New York. Good night.
David Muir, the most trusted anchor in America, the most watched anchor in America. Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir the #1 newscast in America.